Might help if I unmute myself. Hello, everyone. Let me turn up the volume.
Well, I was sitting here going, at least I was.
Yes, I think we both were. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lynn. I'm a student services assistant at East Los Angeles College, and I'm the coordinator for a center called One Zone. Specifically, I'm representing the LGBTQ plus. So we're providing safe space for our LGBTQ students. And since we're in this virtual world, I've been doing that by doing readings and providing information online in the Zoom virtual world. So I'm available on ConXEd or Cranium Cafe Monday through Friday from 8 to 4. Or you can contact me via email. My email is wood, WOOD, as in cat, L as in Larry. So that's woodcl @elac.edu. And as I said, my name is Lynn Wood. So if you have any questions or you're having trouble navigating the ConXEd or Cranium Cafe system, I can help you navigate the system, or you have questions in general, or you just want to email me and say hi, please feel free to do that. I wanted to tell you that I heard Angela Davis is coming to campus specifically on the 13th, November 13th at 11 a.m. I received the information in my email this morning to register, so I did register for that. So I'm saying make sure you check your email. If you don't receive it in your email, please send me an email and I'll forward you the email I received. I'm sure they'll be posting it on social media. It's part of the equity discussions that the campus has been having. Last Friday, they had Dr. Luke Wood speaking on microaggressions. It was an interesting talk.
No relation.
Yes, he's no relation to me, which makes it funnier if you actually saw him. Let's see. Oh, of course, today's the election. It's Tuesday. I can't go on without saying something about that. Of course, you know, no matter how the election turns out, the college is still going to be here. The college has been here since 1945. Here, you know, Monterey Park, and Southgate. So it's not going away. The college is still going to be here. We're still going to be here working. If Trump wins again, God forbid, bite my tongue. If that happens, we will certainly be providing support services and information in addition to how we can proceed. But I think it's best that we just try to focus on the things that we have control over. So I did my part. I did vote already. If you haven't voted yet, you still can. If you have your mail-in ballot, you are no longer mailing that in. Do not put it in the mail today. You can just take it to a voting center or a polling place and you will drop it off and you'll get your little sticker that says I voted.
Before 8 p.m.
Yes, until 8 p.m. today on election day. Also, if you never registered, you can register today. California is one of the few states where you can register in person on election day. Just bring your identification and I think that's all you need to bring. Yeah, as long as that address on there is the place where you live. Otherwise, you would probably want to bring proof of residence because that's what they're going by. So yeah, do your part, vote, try to make change. That's what I have control over. We have until 8 p.m. to exercise that right. Don't forget, people died for us to be able to exercise the right to vote. So you definitely want to not let all those people down and get out there and vote. So that's super important. This is my partner, my wife, and we're here quarantining together. So she is going to read to you today. In addition, she has a little coloring book that she's going to be coloring in. It's a mindfulness coloring book. It's a great size. We've both taken it on airplanes. It's pretty easy, compact.
It has a lot. I mean, you think it's just a little crappy looking book, right? But no, it has a lot to color in there.
It's detailed.
Yeah. Like, okay, boom, just open that up.
Like so many details in it.
Yeah, it just feels good to sit down with your colors. While she's reading, I listen and I go color, 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 you know.
Exactly. So the book that I'm
Oh,
reading
shit.
from today is called Full Disclosure. It's by Camryn Garrett. And it is dealing with being Black and HIV positive. She's in high school, and the issues around that disclosure, full disclosure, thus the title of the book. So it has been an interesting read so far. That's for sure. When last we checked in, they were like setting up for some kind of, they were doing a play. I think it was Rent that they were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find my place. Here we go. Might as well start here. Chapter 15, page 126. Woo. Sorry about the earthquake. I hit the computer. When I smile, my eyes disappeared. Tuesday morning sucks. I wake up late, so I miss my ride with Claudia and Lydia. My pants rip just as I'm walking out the door. Sounds like 2020. And I have to go back inside to change. When I finally get to school, I walk into the wrong classroom for homeroom. And during AP history, Mr. Thompson gives us a pop quiz on the Marshall Court of all things. It doesn't help that I feel Miles' gaze on me during class. I'm not sure how to act after this weekend. Do I wave, kiss him in the hall? The worst part is that I can barely focus on anything when I know he's looking at me. As soon as the bell rings, I dart out of the room, but his footsteps are heavy behind me. Hey, Simone. He's next to me, fingers brushing against mine. My hand tingles like it's fallen asleep. What's up? My eyes are glued to our fingers resting against each other. I can't believe he's acting like this isn't a big deal. Uh-oh, what happened?
What happened? Oh, so they mean in the book.
Yes. All this time I've been trying not to imagine too much. Used to think tons of people were pretty in middle school, celebrities, the older girls. Never thought anything. High school has made it so much worse because things happen here. People kiss in the hallway, hold hands. People are dating, they're having sex. At least they're pretending to love each other. I never thought I'd have that, at least not until I graduated. But here I am, standing in the hall with Miles, who holds his hand out like an invitation. It's one thing to hold hands, but Miles doesn't have an air of cool confidence when he does it. He breaks all the unspoken rules, the ones everyone is supposed to know about. Maybe he just doesn't care. I wish I didn't. I want to enjoy this, to grab his hand like it's no big deal. But the person who wrote the notes could be anywhere. I glance up around us before grabbing his hand as discreetly as I can. He smiles at me. Hopefully the note writer isn't around. I focus on untwisting the nervous knots in my stomach. So there's a lacrosse game today, he says, swallowing. I tug him from behind as I dodge kids chilling by lockers and another trying to skateboard down the middle of the hall. It's home at 4 and rehearsal ends early today. Yes, I say, lowering a brow. Lacrosse is a welcome distraction from everything I'm stressing about. It does. Usually I try to hang out with Claudia and Lydia after rehearsal. It's not a set appointment every day. It's been 3 days since we went to the sex shop, and we haven't been talking much since then. I know it's because of me. Neither of them has said anything, but that doesn't stop the ball of guilt forming in the pit of my stomach. Lydia and Claudia both date and still figure out ways to hang out. Miles and I aren't even dating, not really, and I already feel like I'm slipping away from them. I glanced down at our hands, so I wanted to go watch my guys play, and it would be cool if you came with me. Oh, I blink. I mean, I might stay after rehearsal a bit so I can talk to Palumbo. We're getting closer to opening night. It's already November and the musical opens at the start of December. I can't believe how quickly time is flying. The thought makes me nauseous. I feel like time goes even faster when you're in charge of stuff.
Right.
When you're in charge of stuff, time goes fast. That's cool. He nudges my shoulder. As long as you get there in time to see us win, I'm good. You're so cocky, I say. What if the Spartans lose? We always win. I roll my eyes, shoving him lightly, but there's no weight behind it. Where's your faith? He wraps an arm around my shoulder. I thought you believed in me. As we walk down the hall, my cheeks are flaming. If Claudia were here, she'd undoubtedly make fun of us. The thought makes my heart pang. And the game today, after the game, I'll call her and try to talk about anything but Miles. I don't want to be that girl. And if the note leaver were here, I swallow the thought down, but it just makes my stomach hurt. Well, you aren't going to be on the field, I remind him, and I still don't understand the game, so I'll go watch. But they could suck, and I wouldn't even know. Come on, that's not fair. He leans down. I don't understand musicals, but I still know you're good. That's different, I say, trying to hide my smile. It's not just me. Mr. Palumbo does a lot of the work. It might to make sure everything looks good. And the Spartans have a coach. He smirks at me. I know everything I do looks completely effortless, but oh, please, I bump his side. A musical is totally different from lacrosse. Music is different. You could watch an Italian musical and still understand it because music is universal. It transcends language. Lacrosse doesn't have a language. We're quickly approaching my physics class, but he notices, if he notices, he doesn't show it. I think that means I win by default. Whatever, I reluctantly untangle myself from his arm. I have to go. He glances at the classroom, then back at me. The bell didn't ring. Miles, I gotta go. I cross my arms, but my entire body tingles right down to the toes. He smiles and bending down to kiss me. I've thought about kissing him again more times than I can count. It's like all the time I've spent with him and separated into before that first kiss and after. Before I thought about kissing him sparingly, like my thoughts needed to be hidden away. I think about it late at night, right before I was about to slip off to sleep. But this is real. I get to kiss Miles in the hallway, in the prop closet. I see him after school. I know it's true, but the awe is still there in my fingers, in my cheeks, in my lips. Girls like me can have this? So sad that she's questioning this like the whole time, and you hear her mentioning these notes. She got notes in her locker, and that's why she's had to change schools. Like the stigma is still real about disclosing your HIV status.
Is it somebody who knows that she's positive?
It's somebody that knows that she's positive, and they're leaving notes in her locker telling her, "Bitch, I know, and I'm gonna tell your secrets."
Oh, then it's got to be somebody from the.
She thinks it's somebody from her support group at the hospital.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, but she's not sure, and she's already had to change schools, so it just makes me so sad. Normally, it's easy to throw myself into rehearsal. The show has so many moving parts, but that there's always something new catching my attention. But today, I can't focus. Sounds like me today. Maybe it's because Miss Klein is following me everywhere I move, to the pit orchestra, backstage, like she's making sure I don't screw up. Eventually, I migrate toward the front of the auditorium, folding my arms over my chest to make myself seem more official. Looking out over the cast fills me with dread. First, there's the way everyone groans once I pull out my notebook. And there's the fact that we're losing time, not gaining it. The more notes I add, the more work we have. Only we'll have less time to do it. Okay, just a few notes, I call out. Rocco, try not to upstage Wyatt. Share the stage. Share the wealth. You know what I mean? Rocco grins sheepishly. while Wyatt, who plays Roger, sticks his tongue out at him. Mia, make sure you look at the audience, I say. Mia, playing the role of Maureen, is a sophomore who only speaks when she's on stage. Don't be shy about it, okay? People want to see you. She blinks at me. I guess that means she heard me. Did she blink twice for yes? That's funny. Layla, I say, glancing over her, looking good. She winks. Eric, I say, switching gears. You're not enunciating your lines properly. At this point, you should just drop the New York accent. It is not working. His face crunches up like he just smelled something bad. You never have anything bad to say to Layla, he says, folding his arms. It's always me you have a problem with. Have you guys ever noticed that?
He sounds pouty.
I was just going to say, yeah. He looks back toward the other cast members. Rocco slinks out of sight. Wyatt's eyebrows furrow. Mia has already disappeared. That's not true, I say. And I don't have a problem with you. Your performance needs some work, but that's why we're rehearsing.
Hello.
See? That's what I'm talking about, Eric says. I've starred in 5 school productions. How many have you directed exactly? My face is heating up. I hate the fact that his words have an impact on me at all. Everyone knows that this is my first time directing the school musical. Come on, Eric, Layla says. Her face is red. She gives me notes all the time. Like what? He says. Smile wider. That's enough, I say, forcing my voice to resemble something like still. We're not going to waste time on this. You guys run lines on your own for a few minutes and then I'll watch again. They slowly cluster together, Rocco and Layla, tossing glances over at me. Eric is the last to move. He stares at me like we're in some sort of battle. I take a step away from them, flopping myself down in a seat. My face is hot and my breath is coming out fast. I hate this. I try not to have favorites, but Layla is the nicest, and she hasn't needed as much feedback as the rest of the cast. It's not my fault that she happens to be a quick study. And God, I wish Eric would just talk to me after rehearsal or something. Calling me out in front of everyone implies that I have no idea what I'm doing. Something on your mind? I jump, turning to see Jesse. He has his headphones slung around his shoulders like usual, and a clipboard at his side. He's already crossed out half of his list of notes. Show off with the amount of notes I take. I feel like I'll never get rid of them before the show in December. Just think about everything we have to do, I say, squeezing my arms around my neck. We have to finish costumes, get everyone off book, make sure the choreography looks great. It looks like everything is going by fast. It'll be December before you know it. It's always like this, Jessie says, glancing at the stage. Miss Klein is speaking rapidly to Layla and Eric, who stare at her with attention. At least they don't get pissed when she gives them notes. It'll be even faster next year. You'll see. I guess so. I run a hand through my hair, letting out a sigh. Do you think Lin-Manuel Miranda felt like this before Hamilton debuted on Broadway? How cute. I'm sure he did. Yeah. Jesse raises a brow, but if he thinks I'm full of myself, he doesn't say it. I think it goes by fast for everyone, even Lin-Manuel Miranda. He said he did a show every night. By the time he got to the last night, I'm sure he felt like he had barely been there before he was passing the role to the next guy. It's interesting. I think I'm going to stop here, actually, so we can switch gears. Anne has a book to read to you also. I don't think that we talked about it, but it's a book by the author Graham Norton. Graham Norton does a fabulous talk show if you haven't seen his show on, is it BBC that he's on?
I think it's BBC America.
I was going to say.
And it's a really small picture, so I'll just try to really quick, like slowly. That's him. Friday nights, I think at 11 o'clock I think he's very funny. He's gay, obviously, and I believe he's originally from Ireland, and I think the show comes from London or something. But of course now it's a little different.
Sorry, Anne.
It's okay. I was like, are you really yawning? Didn't even cover her little mouth.
Sorry.
So anyway, I just thought and it is fiction, and we've been reading a lot of like that are more like memoirs and stuff. Like, for instance, like Full Disclosures. Full Disclosure is a very good book, but it is nonfiction. This is fiction, but it's probably based on his family. Okay, that's how people write, though, you know. And it's called A Keeper, and it's about a woman who returns to Ireland after her mother's death, trying to wrap up that part of her life, and she finds a small stash of letters, and stuff happens. Okay, and it is a New York Times bestseller. And this just came out 2019. The first chapter is called Before. He longed for silence. The roar of the wind churned with the rasping rhythm of the waves and filled his head. Every morning Edward woke to these sounds, and when his aching arms pulled the blankets up at night, the same wall of noise filled his dreams. When would he find peace? Edward Foley was hunched on the small promontory of rocks that marked the border between Front Paddock and the sea. Clouds had robbed the sky of stars or a moon, which made the dark hood of sounds feel even thicker. His tears had dried, but now his face was wet once more with a salty mist of spray from the pounding surf. Behind him he heard occasional voices and the thin slam of a car door. If only he could think. He had to consider the future. What to do next? He wasn't what anyone would have called young, but still, at 41, that's barely old. At 41, you couldn't declare your life was over. He thought of his brother James, claimed long ago by the waves. He didn't have the luxury of giving up, but that was precisely what Edward wanted to do, to sit and hug his knees till the tide came to take him. Through the wet crackle of the wind and the waves, he heard an engine start, and the damp grass around him glowed red, then blue. He turned his head and watched the ambulance making its way slowly down the lane, past the orchard towards the road. He felt so foolish. What right had he to expect happiness? This suddenly seemed like the ending of the story that had been written for him so long ago. He stood and looked back towards the house. Every light was burning, or so it seemed. A boat out at sea might have thought they were having a party. Behind the bright grid of windows, he could just make out the looming shadow of the castle ruins that gave the house its name. The countless decades of Foleys that had lived on this land, all that history, now hanging on to the future by a thread. He knew he could go back. He knew he should go back, but he couldn't bear the thought of seeing his mother. He pictured her sitting at the kitchen table, a cup and saucer in front of her, his mug of tea on the opposite side. Her endless stream of words would fill the silence, but it would be her face that told him what she really thought. Somehow, this was all his fault. It would be the same look she had given him when James had died, an expression that told him that she loved him, but she could never forgive him. His mother was not the sort of woman to bounce you on her knee or pull you into the comfort of her breast when everything seemed too much, but she was strong, resourceful, and determined. He knew that if he was to get through this, he would need her. He lifted his collar against the howl of the night and started across the field towards the lights of the house. Of one thing he was certain, his mother would have a plan. Second chapter. Two strands of Christmas lights sagged across the main street, some red, some green, mostly spent. They swayed forlornly in the driving rain. Elizabeth Keene sighed as she drove her small rental car over the bridge into the town, partly because she was weary from her overnight flight from New York to Dublin, but mostly due to the memories conjured up by the sight of Buncara on a wet afternoon in the first week of January. The shiny gifts long forgotten, the last few unwanted quality street sweets being poked listlessly around the bottom of the tin, the novelty of films being on the television in the afternoon, well and truly over. Each house was just a waiting room for school to reopen. She wondered if anything had changed in the 20 years since she'd lived there. Probably not. The kids were no doubt staring at their phones, and though they had hundreds of television stations, she could almost feel the overheated boredom oozing from the terraced houses leaning down from Bridge Street. She was surprised by how fast her journey had been. Growing up here, Dublin had seemed like some distant metropolis, but now with the gleaming new motorway, Buncara was just a couple of exits north of Kilkenny, another county. Had the country shrunk, or had America changed her sense of distance? The crisp blue road signs, with their bright reflective lettering and kilometers, seemed at odds somehow with the places they led to. Sleepy gray market towns that remained rooted in the past. Would this be the last time she ever made this trip? Now her mother was gone. She had no real ties to the place. Of course, there were a few cousins and her uncle and aunt, but they had never been close. And once the house was sold, what reason would she have to return? Ahead of her on the left, just past the railings of the small Methodist church, she could see the family shop, Keene and Sons. I'm assuming it's Keene. The name was picked out in ornate plaster on the facade that had been painted for as long as Elizabeth could remember, in an insipid color that reminded her of uncooked chicken. She slowed down to look in the windows. To the left of the doors was a corpse of artificial Christmas trees, while a display on the right consisted of some flat screen televisions and a trio of gleaming black and chrome baby buggies. Her car was just passing the doors when they opened, and an incongruously glamorous woman stepped out. Shit, it was Noelle, her cousin Paul's wife. They ran the shop now. Had he seen her? Elizabeth glanced in her rearview mirror and saw a long, thin arm waving. Christ, she must have the eyes of a hawk. Elizabeth groaned. She had hoped to make it all the way to Convent Hill unobserved, but she knew she would have to stop. Now. That whole side of the family already thought she was a stuck-up bitch. She put the car into reverse and pulled up alongside Noelle, who was holding a plastic Keene and Sons bag aloft to protect her bright blonde hair from the rain. Oh no. Oh, sorry, I haven't read about white people for a while. Oh, Elizabeth took in Noelle's skin-tight jeans and short padded jacket that allowed people to fully appreciate her trim figure. How was it possible that this woman had produced 3 babies? Elizabeth considered her own forgivingly loose hooded sweatshirt and her cropped dark hair with streaks of gray, which her son Zach delighted in telling her was less of a hairstyle and more of a haircut. She prodded ineffectually at some buttons till a passenger window went down. Bravely trying to banish her concerns about just how bad her makeup free, sleep driven face might look, she leaned across and called out, "Hi, Noelle. Terrible day, isn't it?" It is. I thought it was you. It was the hair I noticed first." Noelle emitted a small shriek to indicate how pleased she was by her perceptiveness. "You must have had a fierce drive. We didn't know you were coming back." There was a slight accusatory tone in her voice. "I didn't know myself," Elizabeth lied. "Zach has gone to see friends, so I thought I'd come back and sort out the house before term time starts up." In other words, school. This was also a lie. Her son had gone to visit his father on the West Coast. She wondered why she hadn't just told the truth. Was she saving herself from embarrassment or Noelle? "You should have let us know. We'd have put the heating on for you. You'll come down for dinner now, won't you?" "You're very kind, but I won't. I grabbed a few bits and pieces on the way out of Dublin, and all I really want to do is sleep. I'll call down tomorrow. You should get in, Noelle. You're getting soaked." "Well, if you're sure, and if you get up there and change your mind, just come down. We're still eating Christmas. We missed having your mother this year, of course." Noelle pushed the corners of her bright red lips down to indicate the sort of regret you might show a toddler that had banged their knee. "Anyway, welcome home." Elizabeth forced a smile and waved. Judgmental bitch. Did Noelle not understand that she could never make Elizabeth feel any guiltier than she already did? The horrible tug of war between being both the single child of a dying woman and a single parent living thousands of miles away was finally over, and she had to admit she was glad. Elizabeth put the car into gear and drove on. The road opened out into what was known as the Green, even though it was just a narrow wedge of paving in the middle of the road, where a park bench and 2 litter bins. Just beyond that, the town's only set of traffic lights turned red. Elizabeth started out at the wet deserted street, the windscreen wipers wearily white slicing away, and a strange fury bubbled up in her. Stop. Don't make me laugh.
Sorry. It was just that I pictured someone in a furry costume.
Yes. I know it's too soon after Halloween. Elizabeth stared at the wet, deserted street, the windscreen wipers wearily slicing away, and a strange fury bubbled up in her. She slammed her hand hard against the steering wheel. Not 5 minutes back in Bunkara, whatever it is, Bunkara, and all the feelings that had made her flee the place had come flooding back. It didn't matter how hard she had studied or who she had invited to her birthday parties. She was always made to feel less in this town. Poor Liz Keene, growing up with no daddy. It was surprising how often the word father came up in a convent education, and every time it did, she had felt all eyes on her. Excuse me. Now she was a single mother herself. Worse, Zach's father, her son. Zach's father refused to do anything as useful as disappear. She understood how strong her mother must have been to endure all the sideways glances and wagging tongues that stopped abruptly as she pushed her pram along the streets in the 1970s. Pram is like a stroller. She sometimes wondered if the humiliation of her own married life was a form of punishment for being so judgmental of her mother when she was a girl. Oh, how she had hated her mother for not having a husband. What sort of woman couldn't manage to get a man? She examined her friends' parents. These women weren't as pretty as her mother, with their unkempt hair and sometimes not even a smear of lipstick. And yet they all managed to find someone Excuse me, the dog is having a little, it's sort of like they call it reverse sneeze. Just gotta wait till she stops doing it. These women weren't as pretty as her mother, with their unkempt hair and sometimes not even a smear of lipstick. Yet they had all managed to find someone to say I do, someone to hold their daughter's hands as they walked in large broods after mass. The memory of her and her mother clicking along the pavement from the chapel to their house, while car windows stuffed with sweaty small faces gawped at them, still brought back a deep pang of loneliness. That feeling of being somehow incomplete. No daddy, no siblings, no sense of being a real family. Ooh. Christmas. No wonder Elizabeth hated it so much. Knowing that everyone else was surrounded by boisterous clans, squashed around tables on mismatched chairs, while she and her mother sat in Sunday silence, scraping at plates. Of course, her aunt and uncle had issued invitations to join them and their three cousins, but her mother always refused. We'll just have a nice, quiet family Christmas, the two of us. Let them get on with it. As an adult, Elizabeth understood her mother's pride and all the guilt she must have endured. But as a child, she felt she was being punished. She always thought her mother had put appearances, the house, her hair, new school shoes, above her actual happiness. Nobody, certainly not her mother, had ever sat down and told her the story of her father in detail. But over the years, she had gleaned the main thrust of the tale. Her mother, Patricia, had nursed her grandmother until she died, at which point most people considered her to have missed the boat when it came to men. She was the spinster's sister and aunt, nothing more. But then, out of the blue, came news that she was dating, and almost before people had time to absorb that fact, came word of a wedding. Her mother had left Bunkara to begin her newly married life. However, within a suspiciously short space of time, she had abruptly returned, carrying the baby Elizabeth in her arms. There was no sign of any husband. The rumor mill went into overdrive. The husband had beaten her. The mother-in-law had driven her out. There had never been a wedding. The fact that she had retained Keene as her surname only added to the mystery and scandal. Nobody knew the truth. When Elizabeth was older, she had tried to talk to her mother about what had happened to her father, but was always given the same stock answer. He died very young, but he was a lovely man, a kind man. If Elizabeth persisted, her mother assured her that he had been an only child and that there was no other family. I bet that's a lie. She imagined her family tree as a couple of bare branches with an ancient vulture perched on one of them. It was only 3 months since the funeral, and yet the sight of Convent Hill had still seemed strangely unfamiliar. The size of the houses increased along with the gradient until she reached number 62. The streetlights spluttered on as she pulled up outside the home where she had been reared. Lots of spaces. People must still be away, she thought. Getting out of the car, the rain felt good on her face as she looked up at the house that still managed to appear imposing. 3 stories tall and double fronted. It had been built for a bank manager, but her grandfather bought it when the shop had started to do well. She remembered her mother telling her how Uncle Jerry, and especially his wife, Auntie Jillian, had tried to get it after her granny had died. But her mother's will had been very clear. Jerry got the shop and Patricia got the house.
I think I'm going to stop you there. It's interesting. It's going along fast, but I can totally picture everything. His style of writing is very descriptive. I can picture them, and her hair, of course. That's funny. Thank you, Anne. I love Graham Norton. So I didn't know that he was a writer. I've just always watched his show.
I think I was watching a show one night and he said, you know, I got a new one that came out, blah, blah, blah. And of course, my mother was born in Ireland, you know, and so I love Irish stuff. But we have been reading other stuff lately. But I thought this would be I thought it might even be a little funny, but it's not really funny.
Not really funny. It's a little sad, but interesting.
Yeah.
And like I said, a very descriptive, so you can picture the ladies and the stuff. Anyway, thank you guys. I personally haven't watched the news, so I don't know what's going on regarding the election, but I did see there's some little, I almost said town, but it's a little state that always reports first on who got the electoral votes for their state, and they're reporting Biden as the winning this first state. It's like I think they
Is
have
it
one
Rhode
or
Island?
two. It may be.
Because Rhode Island is like,
They have like one or two electoral votes, but they always report first, and they're reporting Biden. And so generally the election follows what that first state reports. So fingers crossed. But like I said, if Trump does win, somehow something, the college is still going to be here. We're still going to be here offering support, no matter what happens.
I think we need to do something to get rid of the electoral college.
I think it's a sham too.
It is a sham. He didn't win the last time. Hillary Clinton had the popular vote, which is what it's supposed to be. You know,
right.
That's all there is to it.
Imagine how different our world might be if Hillary Clinton had won or had been declared the winner versus the electoral college winner. We might be in a different place. Maybe like 200,000 people wouldn't have lost their lives. At least 700 people wouldn't have died, because that's what's linked to the president directly with one event. Anyway.
You know, and it has nothing, if it has nothing to do with him being a Republican as much as to do with being that he's, a crazy asshole.
He actively is passing laws and legislation to get rid of us and do what he can to get rid of our people, trans people, LGBTQ people everywhere. So yeah.
And he supports white supremacy.
I was gonna say, and he's a racist.
And what is Make America Great Again? Make America segregated again? Is that what he's trying to say?
Great for who?
You know? Great for, I feel sick. I'm sorry.
Anyway.
I hope things do get better.
Me too. I really do. Truly, in my soul, my heart, every part of my being, I hope that the gods out there are listening to all of my prayers, and that we don't have to be tortured with Trump another 4 years. But before I start crying,
wait though. We haven't been we've been tortured with him for 4 years as a president. We've been tortured for over 20 years for him as whatever else he's been doing.
Yeah, well, in general. Anyway, I'm trying to sign off. Thanks again for tuning in. Yeah, like our channel on YouTube, please. Take care. Have a great Tuesday. Have some tacos.
What's the channel on YouTube?
It's ELAC LGBTQ one zone LGBTQ plus ELAC. If you can't find it, you can always go to elac.edu and search for One Zone, and it's a direct link off of my page. All of my information is there also. I should have mentioned that earlier. There you go. Thanks for staying till the better end. Take care. Have a good day.
Goodbye.